So a lot of people wonder why I am so active online in discussions about social, philosophical, and religious issues. The reality is that I have come to realize throughout my own life and experiences that ideas and narratives that we hold shape our behavior both individually and as a society. On my website, I have the following quote from the German poet Goethe. Quote, "Man is made by his belief. As he believes, so is he." Ideas and narratives are like viruses, and they spread throughout society and individual lives with profound implications for good or bad. Being an active participant in the public exchange of ideas that shape me and the world around me is something I have always found profoundly interesting and meaningful. However, I think that my passion for this was exacerbated the most when the fundamental ideas that I hold in my life were challenged. Now, I don't tell people that I had a faith crisis, but I certainly will say that for about 10 years, starting in 2008, when I got home from my mission, I went through a significant faith renovation where I had to go down and explore and re-explore the very foundations of my belief system. So I grew up in an LDS home as one of 8 children. I was also part of one of those huge extended families that everyone in the community knows and who also were essentially all active members of the church. I had a great childhood. And while our family had its share of normal problems, the gospel was always this common theme that united us all. However, over the course of a decade, following my return from my mission in 2008, I have watched as all my siblings left the church one by one for a variety of reasons. I am now the only one left. I also watched as about half of my very large extended family left the church as well. Of the 3 family members who most influenced me to go on my mission, 2 of the 3 had left by the time that I got home. Now, I just want to say that I still have a great relationship with my family, though navigating faith differences has presented some new and big challenges. I only mention this so that people know that I, too, personally, have experienced close up the various reasons that people leave the faith, and this is an important context to my story. My older brother has always been someone that I really look up to, and I still do. You see, many people end up coming across something like polygamy or Book of Mormon anachronisms and end up abandoning the church for those sorts of reasons. But that was not the case with my older brother. As we talked about his relationship with the church, he told me that his issues were far more fundamental. It was that he had lost his belief in God. I asked him more about this, and I was introduced to the arguments from atheists like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and the others in the New Atheist movement, along with more classical arguments like those found in Thomas Paine's The Age of Reason. So from the very beginning, my situation was different than a lot of people, and unlike others, I started by going to the very foundations of my belief in God, and from there began a process of reevaluation from the ground up, and that may have made all the difference, as you will see in subsequent videos. I came to realize that our testimonies as members of the church are ultimately built on 3 distinct propositions, with each proposition depending on the truth of the one before it. The first is that God exists. The second is that the Jesus Christ of the New Testament embodied that God. And lastly, that Joseph Smith was authorized by Jesus Christ to restore his church. But then I noticed something strange. People who were having trouble accepting the Book of Mormon or things like polygamy were not just abandoning Joseph Smith, they were abandoning Jesus Christ and their belief in God oftentimes. I was confused by this, because even if Joseph Smith was a fraud, that would not negate my belief in God or even Jesus Christ. My belief in God was not dependent on the claims of Joseph Smith. However, it dawned on me that many people believed in God and Jesus Christ because of the Joseph Smith story. But I believed in Joseph Smith's story because of my belief in Jesus Christ, and I believed Jesus Christ because of my belief in the existence of a higher power. I began to notice that many people's testimonies were totally inverted. I could not relate to this. As long as I held the belief that a personal God interacted with the world, the Jesus story became totally plausible. And as long as I held that the New Testament accounts of Jesus were fundamentally true, the story of Joseph Smith became totally plausible. On the other hand, of course, the Joseph Smith story is absolute nonsense if you no longer believe in the Jesus of the New Testament. And of course, the Jesus of the New Testament is a total absurdity when you abandon the idea of a God who interacts with the world. It's kind of like how calculus would seem like nonsense until you understand the arithmetic and algebra that it's based on. This framing of the anatomy of my beliefs was a game changer for me. I now could see the fundamental structure of my belief system. I came to see my beliefs as 3 levels of conversation. I sometimes summarize my testimony as follows. I once had a conversation about reality, and among the possible explanations, the best was that God existed. I once had a conversation about God, and among the possible explanations, the best was that Jesus was who the New Testament claims he was. I once had a conversation about this Jesus of the New Testament, and among the possible explanations, the best was that his church had been restored through a prophet. Do you see how these are different conversations? As I explored my own faith, I realized how much society influences our worldview. This is the lens that we bring to these conversations. In our Mormon bubbles, we often don't realize the broader social trends, and the reality is that Christianity in Western society is falling off a cliff, and has been for well over 40 years, and perhaps even longer in Europe. For nearly the entire life of the church, we have been having conversation 3 with a world that already had conversation 1 and 2. But that's not the case anymore. Due to ideological shifts that really gained traction in the 20th century, Western society now brings a secular lens to the first and second conversation. And as a result, fewer and fewer people take the New Testament Jesus seriously. And thus, many describe themselves as spiritual, but not religious, as they cling to whatever vague notions of God they can, so their life is not rendered totally meaningless. So why didn't I go down the route that my siblings and so many others in society are going? I'll cover that in my next video. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and hit the subscribe button. Also, if you want more content, including the podcast, go to thoughtful-faith.com. Thanks for watching.